Hello, and thank you for tuning into this episode of Roots of the Valley, a show where we dig deep into all of the history of the Yakima Valley and what made it what you see today. Right now, I am actually in Naches, and I am here with Doug MacNeil. Doug, thank you so much for speaking with me.
My pleasure, John.
Now, you've had a family in Naches for the last 3 generations, so you're sort of a longtime family around Naches, aren't you?
Actually, 4 generations, John. It started in 1898 when my grandparents arrived in Naches and established a creamery. And from that point to 2023, my family has been involved actually for 125 years of Naches history.
Wow, 125 years. That's impressive. But it first started out with the Creamery. This one right here, right?
Yes, this is the Naches Valley Creamery that my grandparents had, and they had that from 1898 to 1906. He actually won 3 first place awards in the Yakima State Fair for his butter that he made, which came actually from the Nile, because he felt the Nile butter had a better quality to it, and he won the state first place as a consequence of the butter that he produced in 1901, 1902, and 1903.
Where did he come to Naches from?
Actually, from Orting, Washington. He grew up actually in eastern Washington, but he had the opportunity when he was working at the creamery in Orting to come to Naches to establish a creamery here, and it was the first commercial business that Naches had, starting in 1898. And as a consequence of him taking butter twice a week to Yakima, people would ask him, "Harry, would you bring me a sack of potatoes or sugar or my mail or whatever," which he was perfectly willing to do, and eventually decided it was time then to maybe build a store, which he did in 1906 in Naches. So, it was the first business in what had been the newly platted town of Naches.
Where was this general store?
Well, if you're not familiar with Naches, it was directly across from our current town hall on 2nd Street. Actually on property that Kit and Wayne Hauber own today, but it's just south of our town hall on the corner of Moxie Avenue and 2nd Street.
Okay. So he started this general store because there was a little bit of a need, however, that's not just the extent of what he's done for Naches, isn't it?
No, it isn't. He obviously opened the store in 1906. In 1909, he was one of the founding members of the Naches Commercial Club and was treasurer of that particular group. Then in 1910, he was one of 5 investors for the Naches State Bank, which he kept involved in that until actually his death. But he was one of the investors of the bank, one of the 5 investors. They put in $2,000 apiece to start the Naches State Bank. Interestingly, he started the bank. My daughter Kara was the last employee of the bank before it became Cott's Peak, as the building is known today.
Okay, so quick question about the actual city of Naches and about when your grandfather came over. I mean, was it an actual chartered city at that point? Was it newly chartered? I know it was in the early days, but how did it look then?
No. The commercial club, as it was started in 1909, pushed for what would be eventually incorporation of the town, and that occurred in 1921 when the town of Naches was incorporated. And then, interestingly, in 1922 was when the first, not the first, but that new high school was built up on the hill. The first school actually was in 1906, which my mother attended. My mother was born in Naches in 1900, and was the lone graduate of Naches High School in 1919.
Oh, wow. So she was a valedictorian then.
Salutatorian and all the rest.
Going back to your grandfather, you got a couple of cool little coins over there. What were they used for?
Well, this was a coin that in the store he would hand out, and this was for 50 cents in merchandise. There was also a quarter one, and I think there was a dollar one, which I don't have. But this was an incentive to shop at the Painter merchandise store. And so that was just an incentive for people to come. He owned the store from 1906 to 1918, sold it in 1918 to Hendy and D.C. MacIver. And part of the reason he sold is because his son had flu and died shortly after entering World War I, similar to the COVID today. And people would be extended credit, and they weren't paying the credit. So the store, he decided, hey, it was better for him to get out of it. And he and my grandmother, Nora, then became dairy farmers from then till they retired.
Okay, and is that this Ten Oaks Ranch here? Is that what the dairy farm became?
Interestingly, shortly after they arrived in Naches, Indians came to their home and said that there was an Indian chief buried beneath 10 oak trees out in their pasture, and never to disturb it, which they never did. But as a consequence of the Indians coming to tell them that, they named their ranch, as you can see, the Ten Oaks Ranch. There's more to that story, but that is basically what occurred.
Okay, so this Ten Oaks Ranch was a dairy farm. Was it just that, or was it more? Or
it was.
Tell me about it.
Of course, the Creamery was there, and when they became dairy farmers, and the store was located, or the ranch was located actually where Slim Store is today, from the current Greenway to the river, was the location of the ranch. And the Slim Store, Thompson's farm store, everything from east of the signal light to the 4-lane highway, from the river from the Greenway, the former railroad bed, was the Painter Ranch.
Okay, and this Painter Ranch, did it just stay up until your grandparents passed away, or did their children keep it alive, or what happened to that?
Actually, my mother was killed in an auto accident in 1958 on Snoqualmie Pass. My grandfather and my father were also in the car. My grandfather died shortly after my mother had passed, and as a consequence, my two brothers, my sister, and myself inherited the remaining property.
Okay, and what did you do with it?
Well, we actually sold the property to Wilfred Daggett, who built the first Forest Service building on that property.
Really?
And the rest of it had been sold prior, so it was just the area from what today is the pit stop to a Slim Store that remained as far as the family was concerned.
Okay. You mentioned that there are 4 generations of Naches in your family. You spoke about the first one. How about your parents and the generation after Harry Painter and his wife?
My parents, Donald and Gladys Painter MacNeil, my mother's, of course, maiden name was Painter. My father was an ordained congregational minister, and he went into the Army in 1942 as a chaplain. When he came out, he had, I guess you'd call it in today's world, PTSD, and never went back into the ministry, but he was on our town council. He also started a luncheon program in the Presbyterian Church, My mother was a school teacher. Actually, she was my third grade teacher. And she was PTA president. She also was the one who got convinced the council to bring the Yakima Valley Regional Library to Naches. And from that standpoint, my two brothers and my sister, my oldest brother, Don, was on the first 1945 Naches football team. He was also ASB president. My brother, Bob, didn't know even how to spell the word sports, but he was an engineer for WiseDot, and I give him credit for establishing the signal light that we have out on Highway 12 today. My sister was involved in the Naches Women's Club, was a cook for the school, ended up working for Treetop, and then baby of the family was myself.
Oh, you're the baby. But as the baby, you went on to show them that you were the mayor in the future.
Well, I was, John. We came to Naches when I was in the second grade. I fell in love with basketball and was able to do fairly well as far as basketball was concerned. I was the ASB president. I was captain of the basketball team for 2 years. Went to WSU or WSC in those years for a year, but you always had the draft looking over you, so I went into the Army in 1955 through 57. When I came out, I came back to YVC, played basketball for Yakima Valley College, and then met my wife, Ann, and behind every good man, there's a better woman, and she certainly has been very supportive of me over the years in all the controversial positions that I've had through the years. I graduated from Eastern. My first job, interestingly, was at Ording, Washington, where my grandparents had come from. And we had some success there athletically in basketball. We got a fourth place trophy, and then we played for the state championship in 1966. Unfortunately, we lost to Reardon by 3 points. Oh. And that game sticks with me. It has forever. I returned to Naches in 1968, and Naches had 17 years of, actually, at that point in time, they had 15 years of non-winning basketball seasons. In 1969-70, we won the league championship. Should have gone to state, but we'd beaten Highland 3 times in a row, and in the district tournament game, they bested us. There was only one representative to state at that time, so we didn't go, but we did go for the first time in 1974, and that was the first time Naches had been to the state tournament since 1951 when I was on that particular team. And right here, as a consequence of getting to state, the Naches Lions Club presented me with a key to the city in 1974 because it hadn't been there since 1951. But we went on. I continued coaching basketball. We returned to state in 1978, took 8th place, and we went back in 1979. And at that point, I resigned from there. But I had become a council member in about 1976, 77, someplace in there. And I served on the council for 14 years. And then when Mary Tenney decided to retire because of growth management and all the things that were happening with state mandated situations, I said I would become mayor, and I served as mayor until 1996. And I guess we could say that one of the things that we did is our current town hall was started under my mayorship. Also, our current post office was started. We went through a couple of housing rehab programs during that time, and I resigned from that position in 1998. But prior to that, I hired or got Charles Ross, who's our current auditor, to serve on our council, and Charles took to politics like a duck takes to water, and we're very, very proud of what he has been able to accomplish. And in that process of hiring him, Charles eventually became our mayor and hired our son-in-law, Jeff Ranger, as our town administrator.
Wait, so Charles Ross, the current county auditor that I've spoken to many, many times, used to be the mayor here?
Yes, he was. He started out our council, and then when Keith Cronister passed away, and who followed me as mayor, Charles then took over as mayor, and then he ran for the state legislature and served there. And actually, because of what he was doing in Olympia and his relationship with Jeff Ranger, there was all kinds of things that started happening in Naches from 2001 to 2023.
Okay. And then you mentioned also that your son-in-law is helping tell this story of Naches as well.
Well, he has, and when you look at some of the things, for example, as we're sitting here in the Naches Depot, Jeff negotiated with the Lions Club to acquire the depot and to have it refurbished from what it was. This building was originally built in 1906 when the train came out from Yakima to Naches, and of course it would carry the equipment for the building of Bumping Dam and eventually Rimrock Dam and the Titan Canal. But this was just one of the many, many things that Jeff was able to accomplish during the time that he was administrator. And you have to give credit not only to Jeff and Charles Ross, but also the mayors that followed Charles after he became a legislator, and our council to approve all of the things that Jeff was able to do, along with his clerk treasurer, Elvita. Was the two of them were very, very successful in whether it was repaving streets, whether it was looping water lines, whether it was changing a variety of things and doing things. But eventually in 2023, the people of the town decided they didn't want growth, and as a consequence of that, we are basically dead in the water as far as any residential growth is concerned. As a part of the growth management that came down in the 90s, eventually the Urban Growth Renewal Program came in, and as a consequence of that, there are 3 parcels of land today that are in the urban growth area. But those particular parcels, one has no direct access to Naches, the other was brought in because of thought there would be a reduction in his taxes. So, and if you're going to develop land, you got to have somebody with the big bucks. And during that time, Jeff was able to develop the what is called Naches Meadows, which is out west of town, which has over 50 residences today, and where my wife and I are living today. But just so many things that Jeff was able to accomplish, and has to be given a tremendous amount of credit as a consequence of his efforts.
So if you look back on what all of your family has done and might do in the future, how does it make you feel to know that your family's had this big of a footprint?
Well, we're very proud of what my family has been able to accomplish over 125 years of living in Naches and seeing it develop. I wonder today what might be the consequence. At one time, the major commercial area of Naches is what we call the old Naches area, but many of the businesses have moved out onto the Highway 12 today, and there has been an attempt to maybe restore the old Naches commercial area, but that may not be happening, and maybe the more development that is going to be done out on Highway 12 will be where the town actually will be, and the residential area will be north of Highway 12 as a consequence.
And lastly, you recently wrote a book about the history of Naches. It's been described as many things to me. One of them, most commonly actually, as the unofficial historian of Naches. What inspired you to write this book?
Well, you're making reference to the book that was recently published that I put together called The Naches Story. And the reason that I thought I should write down that history is because of our family's involvement of 125 years. Started with my parents. Actually, the book starts in the early 1850s when the Longmire wagon train came up through the Weenas, 1852, 1853, and headed over to the west side of the mountains. And that's a very interesting story as to the trials and tribulations they went through to get their wagon train there. But that's where I started, and from that point on, back in about 2012, 13, our local newspaper that was called Marlene's newspaper, I wrote a series of some 25 articles about the history of Naches, and then I decided, well, let's put it into book form. And I went through all of the town council minutes from 1921 and got the information. I have done the history of the Lions Club, and so I have included that. I have done the history of the Naches Fire Department. I've done the history of the Naches Presbyterian Church. So I compiled all of that into the book, and along with other various stories that I could put in, poems and whatnot. Roy Harold and Mary Tenney, both quoted in as poems that they wrote about a variety of things. But anyway, it's a compilation of bits and pieces, facts and figures of the history of Naches. Kind of a documentary, if you will.
Well, thank you so much, and I really appreciate you speaking with me today about the history of Naches.
Well, you're welcome, John. I'm glad to do it.
And thank you so much for watching this episode of Roots of the Valley. You can watch all of our other episodes on KIMA Action News' YouTube channel, and more episodes will be coming out on the first and third Sunday at about 11 o'clock. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.